welcome back once more to check out the final round of the Nations Cup World Series. Man, was this a long day. It took 4 stints to finally get a finish worth keeping. It was a rough and frustrating afternoon that I was forced to push on into the evening before I was able to retire. I know this video comes late as the Manufacturers Series has already begun, but I still wanted to get this out there for any of you interested in how I finished. There will also be a Manufacturers Cup details at the end, so stick around to hear about that as well. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get into it. Five minutes to qualify, so generally speaking an outlap and 2 qualifiers. Waiting patiently for space before I leave the pits, and I'll have plenty of it when I come around to start the first lap. Everything's going to go smoothly except for this exit where I'll flirt with death along this steep, jagged hillside, probably losing a couple of tenths of a second to the dirt, and I'll bring lap 1 to a close with a 1:47.5. I'm on pole for the moment, but is it going to stick? I certainly cannot just hope that it does, so let's try to push hard into lap 2. I'll catch up with 2 coats near the end of the second lap. I'm going to have to squeeze by him to maintain my pace. Looks like I was able to keep it clean, no worries there. Probably the best place for me to have caught up with him. Ultimately, I'm going to be a few tenths shorter on the second lap. No improvement, and I'll finish out in P3. I'm unsure to my tire strategy here, as I've not had any time to practice anything more robust than just a few hot laps. So I'm going to start out on the softs and swap over to the additionally required mediums whenever these are worn through. Going into turn 1, Silvertails is going to slow down way early. I'm going to find myself in his bumper, and this leaves easy access for Snacks to find himself right up my inside. We're going to stay right alongside him though, heading down the hill towards turn 3. Turn 3 is not a spot you want to be side by side through, as you've got to slow down to not run the outside guy wide, and most people aren't going to respect your space through it, but as you saw, we do get run a little wide, better than expected. We're going to outbrake Snacks into the hairpin of turn 5 and re-secure our position. Finishing up Sector 1, we've got 3 cars clogging up our rear view. We've got to nail this twisting, uneven Sector 2, or we are going to get absolutely punished as a result. Sector 2 is extremely easy to mess up. I paid a lot of attention in practicing this sector more than any other. Coming around the hairpin to turn 10, we'll be vindicated in that attention to detail as we accelerate out and away from the mob behind us. Jumping ahead to lap 3, we're coming down the hill towards turn 5, and Silvertails is going to bring his car almost to a crawl before starting to turn in. We'll duck up there inside, keep a tight apex, and then zoom off to start Sector 2. Not much to report for a few laps, so we're going to jump forward to lap 6. The delta to P1 had gotten up as high as 6 seconds, but I was starting to find my stride and whittle it down. However, unfortunately, I'm going to succumb to my nearly dead tires and take a spill coming out of turn 15, and damn, what a penalty. 1.5 seconds, big ouch. That's definitely going to give Silvertails behind us a morale boost, not only as the gap between us immediately gets obliterated, but I'm going to have that glaring red penalty marker right above the car. I'm going to stay out on these tires for one more lap though. I know I can squeeze just a little more life out of them, and I'm confident that I can get through Sector 2 better than my quickly gaining opponent. I'm just hoping that it's going to be enough to offset this penalty time loss to keep the position. Starting into Sector 2, the gap is, to my surprise, already opening back up. Let's be careful on turns 7 and 8 here. That little bump can spell disaster, projecting the car into the outer wall, slowing the car and assigning more penalty time. Around turn 10, up the hill, and it looks like my gamble may be paying off. Really at this point, this race is just a fight for second place, so with this gap, will I be able to serve the penalty and survive the lack of acceleration across the bridge? Around turn 12, onto the back straight, headed for the penalty line. The gap to P3 is just shy of 3 seconds. Penalty served, but is there going to be enough time to get the car down the straight before we get passed up? Taking a peek behind, it looks like it's going to be close. Boom, made it. Now let's get down the final stretch and come in for fresh tires. From this point, it's a slow, marginal decline where I feel like we're living in a soft tire world and I'm a medium tire girl. The effects wouldn't have been as bad if I hadn't self-imposed 3 seconds worth of penalties on myself. Oh, sorry, we've only covered 1.5 of those. We haven't seen that part yet. Coming onto the home straight at lap 9, I'm going to get this weird little tail whip off of K-John. That felt a little personal. I don't know why. Like, what the hell was that? But alright, cool. Let's race. And race we would. For like 7 turns. And then I just didn't account for the bump between turns 7 and 8, and with harder tires, and absolutely threw away my potential podium finish. But yeah, slow decline, and I ultimately finished 6th. Not a far cry away from where I qualified, but we're not supposed to be racing backwards. Let's give this another go. Qualifying in race 2, we follow the same formula, wait in the pits, first minute, and out to open air. I'm going to see gains in this lobby, qualifying in 2nd. It feels promising, looks promising, let's get into it. Alright, P2 and only a 1/10 of a second off pole, starting on soft tires again for this stint. I'm hoping that Romef in front of me is going to be doing the same, but as it's going to turn out, he will be on mediums to start. This isn't necessarily a bad thing though. This can provide me a much needed boost to try and get a jump on this Supra. Again, we've all become very familiar with the pedal to the floor pace this car has, and this track is positively littered with flat out drag sections. Having kept it close, my opportunity to pass comes sooner than I was anticipating. I'm going to get a fantastic run at a turn 12 and be able to beat Rom into the braking zone of turn 13. However, there's not enough technical section left between now and the home straight to try to build a safe gap, so I'm going to be left absolutely vulnerable headed for the finish line to start lap 2. Balanced is going to be in a favorable position to be drugged forward by the slipstream, which should have been a fair pass though is going to end in disaster as Balance gets overzealous to shut the door behind him, connects with me into the braking zone, unsettling his car and absolutely destroying Rom going into turn 1. This additionally distracts me from braking cleanly into the apex and opens the door for Guardian to slot himself past me. Guardian won't stay ahead of us long though. During lap 3, we're going to pull the same maneuver on him as we had with Rom and handily regain P2. We're going to make an easy work of the S section and pull away hard. Had this race finished under normal circumstances, this would have been the last we'd see of him. By lap 7, the 4-second gap that had been built up while I was waiting to pass Guardian is falling. Based off his pace, I'm absolutely positive that he's also on the softs and he'd be needing to pit soon. My tires are also not looking great, so instead of trying to pull one more lap out of them, I dive in for an undercut. I'll come out to open air, allowing full use of my fresh grip, and it will pay off as Balance is exiting the pits on my approach to turn 1, putting us directly on his tail. It appears that Balance is struggling to adapt to his new shoes, and it's really going to show when he has a big moment coming out of turn 15, almost completely losing control. I'll get a strong enough run past him that it will mitigate the stronger benefits of the slipstream here, and I'll have the position secured. I'll say again, had this race finished under normal circumstances, this would have been the last we'd see of him as well. Headed for the end of lap 10, we're going to witness a positively dominating recovery out of Rom. Back from the ditch Balance left him in, he's going to thunder past us down the home stretch and reclaim his rightful place in the order. I mean, give it up for him. What an absolute beast of a driver. I wish I had time to go back and show you his recovery up to this point, but it was absolutely epic. Skipping ahead towards the end of the last lap, I wish I could say that this race finished with a well-earned P2 podium finish, but it doesn't. For I am the undisputed king of being my own worst enemy. I had actively taken this last lap carefully, abusing the gap I had to P3 behind me to bring the car in safely, but my death came to me by millimeters. I connect with the wall not once, but twice, the game exclaims in Eat Shit Red. The car slams to a halt and I proceed to be crushed under the Herculean weight of the GT7 penalty system. How many times had I witnessed others frolicking through the dirt below this cliff? How many times had I run ever so slightly wide into the dirt below this cliff? But of course, now and in such dramatic fashion would we find out that there is a small, invisible extension to this barren barrier. P7 to finish. My day should have been done. P2 was more than satisfactory, but no, I couldn't leave it at that, could I? Onward to Stint 3. Qualifying in Stint 3 certainly wasn't my best showing. It was average, placing me in P4, 3/10 off a pole. I'm changing up my strategy here, hoping that at least the 2 Supras ahead of me, and if I'm lucky, the other GTR are going to be running softs. I've swapped over to starting on mediums, and the plan is to use their slipstream to pull me along until whomever is the race leader at the time ducks off into the pits. I'll follow them in, swap onto the softs, and after the full field has pit and our true positions are revealed, hopefully have the upper hand on the leaders. Speaking of the leaders, it's going to be chaos going to the first heavy braking zone of the race. Both the Supras are going to brake late, go wide into the turn, and K-John is going to use this to his full advantage to generate more of it. This comes across to me as flagrantly dragging his car across the nose of Alien Fanatic and very nearly Filmora. Fanatic is going to be forced to bounce off of K-John and Filmora and get murdered into the side of the cliff. K-John shows not even the slightest hesitance and continues on. I was a little slow through Sector 2, so this allowed Bronny to get alongside me into Turn 12. I'm actually totally cool with this. If he has the pace to quickly re-establish the slipstream chain that is beginning to fold between myself and P2, let's let him have it. I give him ample space to take the turn with a good exit and slot back in behind him. It's looking like that may not have worked out, but as we exit Turn 15, everything looks perfect. Chain re-established. Pushing ahead into lap 2, again at the hairpin of turn 5, a little more chaos and karma in action. K-John is just going to absolutely lose it for no discernible reason on the exit. His rear end snaps out from behind him, and 3 of us pass on by. Jumping way ahead to lap 7, my strategy seems to be working perfectly, and for sure both P1 and 2 are on soft tires. I've managed to hang out and let them both drag me along without a hitch. It's not until here that a gap starts to form between P1 and 2. Their tires have got to be bleeding masses at this point, and Briney is going to suffer on them more than Filmora. That's a little bit of a letdown, as that's going to slow us down a bit, but hey, this has been working way better than I could have possibly expected. On to the end of lap 8, I was super surprised when both Filmora and Briney stayed out another lap. I expected Briney to fold at the least, as he was struggling out of the corners, but I guess he had the same plan as me and boxed with P1. At this I get visual confirmation that both the leaders were on soft tires. I swap over to mine and try to change mental gears from just riding the roller coaster to operating it. Through the downhill section of lap 10, I'm going to go the tiniest fraction wide, trying to stay tight to turn 4 and pick up a half-second penalty. This is going to turn into a massive disappointment when I reach the penalty line to serve it, because if that in front of me wasn't the opportunity I had been waiting for 2/3 of this race. That was absolutely a setup to be a double overtake into turn 13. What a missed opportunity. With lap 11 coming to a close, I have been struggling to get past Filmora. He's playing way too defensively and I cannot find my way around him. Even on the straights with what should be medium tires, I'm getting smoked. There's a gap building to P1, P4 has caught up with us, and would you look who it is, K-John has returned. Now, I will admit that my eyes have been completely glued to the action in front of me, just waiting for any slip that I can capitalize on to continue pushing forward, because time is running out. I had no clue that he was right behind me down the straight. Because I'm blinded to the situation in front of me and my adrenaline is pumping through the roof, I completely misread the contact between myself and K-John around turn 1 and believed that I have been dive bombed. It doesn't help that I have to take, action to avoid P2 as he takes turn 1 at way too slow a pace. And because I fully believed in the moment that the contact was on K-John, I will unjustly retaliate at turn 5. Was I sorry for what I did after the race was over? A little. Ultimately, I didn't lose sleep over it, because that movie pulled back in lap 1 was pretty gross. All I can do is say this happened, explain my thoughts, and not try to cover it up in the editing. We'll see Filmora mess it up back at turn 5, so we're finally free to move forward from here. There's a 3-second gap to P1, and I only have 3.5 laps to fix it. Start of lap 13, 2.1 second delta. Start of lap 14, 2.4 second delta. Final lap, the delta is down to 1.5 seconds and I am completely safe from interference from P3 with a 6-second gap. I have got to push. Victory is right there. I will push all the way through this final lap, being careful coming out of turn 15, but be left absolutely bemused at how Briney was able to keep this pace on medium tires. Yeah, my softs are worn, but his medium should be in a state somewhat relative to mine. In the end, I'm content to accept P2, but when I cross the finish line, I'm met with a huge surprise. Briney had made the mistake of not swapping over to medium tires at our pit stop and is assessed a 1-minute penalty. His finishing position is immediately adjusted on the order sheet, and I'm able to close the day with a victory worth 161 points, my highest score of the Nations Cup season. In the GT2 league with 430 points, I'll finish 13th in the North American region and 9th in the States. I've got to say that I outperformed my expectations, especially seeing as only the top 3 of 7 rounds were going to be tallied, and I was only able to participate in 3 rounds. Every race mattered for my result. So, Nations Cup is closed, and the Manufacturers Series has opened. It should be no surprise, really, if you've followed my channel so far, that I pretty much exclusively drive Nissan. So I naturally signed with Nissan. I did get to participate in round 1 of the series, and I'm looking forward to getting to share that with you as it's the next video on my workbench. Until then, thank you so much for being here, and I'll look for you in the next one. Take care.